Good evening. Welcome back to AMFM247.com with Cool Your Heels, Lillian Caldwell, our Passionate World Radio Network, the world in your hands. And this evening, our special guest is Moody, who wrote a book called Some Women Prefer Hell. Good evening, Moody. How are you?
Good evening. I'm great. How are you?
I am doing pretty well. Now, you wrote a book about women who prefer bad boys. Only the bad boys you write about don't settle down, get married, and turn over a new leaf, do they?
Not in part one. No, they don't.
So, why did you feel you had to get a message across to some women that if they were going to associate with bad boys, things might not have a fairy tale ending?
Well, because those types of guys are never really talked about. We don't get advice for the bad guys. We just are told to stay away from them. But there are some women who gravitate towards them. So I thought that it was very pertinent to speak to those women because I am one of those women. So I wanted to make sure that we aren't overlooked.
So what do you find that attracts you to a bad boy?
I guess the thrill and the excitement about it. Yeah, that's it.
That's it? Is a lot of them well off, like pimps or gangsters or people who swindle other people, or because they're bad boys, so they're not going to be a pillar of society, for example?
Right, exactly. I mean, they're definitely not doctors and engineers and scientists and things like that. They are definitely the opposite on the other end of the spectrum.
So what does a woman need to know about when she starts going out with a bad boy?
Well, she absolutely needs to know herself first. She needs to know that if she can or cannot handle that, that type of relationship, I would still say, proceed with caution because it isn't for everyone. Those guys you should stay away from, but curiosity kills a cat. So most women that I know are very rebellious, and the more you tell them to stay away, the more that they gravitate towards that side. So they have to be strong, and they need to understand what they're doing.
Do they also need how to learn self-defense, for example? Because some of the bad boys, even the good boys, abuse their women.
Yes, they definitely need to. I think all women should just know self-defense, just off general purposes. You should definitely just know how to defend yourself. But yes, when you decide that you're going to be a woman that prefers bad boys, you need to have self-defense down pat. That should be number one.
And what do you need to do to protect yourself? Because I suspect that most bad boys, like some good boys, don't really want to be encumbered by little babies or toddlers in their life.
You mean like sexually? How do you need to protect yourself?
Well, should they expect to find that a bad boy just wants him and his mall and he doesn't want any little kids running around?
Yeah, I don't think that the bad guy is the family guy. I mean, there's sometimes where you'll have stories where they change, their whole trajectory about life. But 9 times out of 10, those guys are just fun guys. Those aren't guys that you have families with. They're just a time, a phase in your life.
So is it like being asked to join the mafia, knowing that when you marry in the mafia, you're marrying for life, and if you be a pigeon for the FBI or the cops, then your life is worth piddly squat?
I kind of wouldn't take it to that magnitude because the mafia is extreme. The mob is definitely extreme, but along those lines, yes.
And do they expect their woman to stand by them no matter what?
Absolutely. While they do whatever they decide that they're going to do, they definitely expect their woman to stay right by their side. Yes, they do.
Now, do they cut them off from other friends or family members?
Absolutely. They are definitely, see, the bad boys, they seek weak-minded women because they're able to manipulate their mind. They're able to isolate them from their friends so that they think that they only need that guy. And so, when the going gets rough, you only have that guy, so you only look to that guy. And then your whole life becomes that guy. and that's what they do. They prey on the weak.
Well, you don't sound weak to me. You sound pretty
No.
strong. Did you get your strength along the way, or did you always have it but you couldn't find it?
Well, I guess it's twofold. I got my strength along the way, and I could say that how strong I am now, I probably always had it, and I just couldn't find it. But going through the relationship that I did, that I tell about in the book, and that I saw from my mother, it definitely made me stronger and made me realize, for when I get older, or as I get older, I have to make sure that I know who I am, what I deserve, so that I don't accept anything less than I deserve.
And if you see the leanings in your daughter, what are you going to do when you have a child?
I am going to, and this is probably going to be the hardest thing ever, but I'm going to have to let her go through it. Because the more that you tell somebody, to not do it, that's the more that they want to do it. My mother told me not to do it, and I still did it. Had she not told me not to do it, I think that I wouldn't have done it. But it's always people do what you tell them not to do.
Exactly. That's very, very true. So what kind of behavior do mothers need to look out for if they feel that their daughters have a leaning towards to go out with a bad boy?
That kind of rebellious behavior is, like I say, if you see that, your daughter is leaning more towards doing things that you tell them not to do, or they're becoming, less secretive about their lives, more secretive about who they're hanging out with, or if you do, you know how my mother knew about who I was interested in? It was the guys that I wanted to see, the rappers that I wanted to see. She could tell, like, okay, so since you're into this type of rapper, this is who you're going to try to go for. Those are signs that who they are attracted to.
Sounds pretty good. Are bad girls the same as bad boys? Would a bad girl have a different type of influence on a regular boy if they get snared in their clutches, as they say?
Yes. Now, women are way more strategic than men are. So I believe that the bad girls probably, are a little bit more detrimental for the guys that are meek or not as strong to handle that situation. So
I'm curious, what happens when a bad girl meets a bad boy?
Would
sparks fly?
I think that sparks would probably fly, or one would be more dominant than the other and take over, or it would be a match made in heaven.
Depending on their battle of wills, then, and who has a stronger character.
Exactly. Mhm.
Now that's very interesting. You think it's genetic as well? You could pass it down from one generation to the next?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because I watched my mom. That's actually what the book is about, me watching my mom go through a similar relationship, and then it's like a generational curse. I go into the same situation. So I think that it is genetic. When you see something, you mirror. Monkey see, monkey do.
So how did you feel as a child watching a mother go through a series of relationships that really wasn't very good for her at all, but she kept on repeating the pattern?
It kind of broke my heart, to say the least, because my mother was one of the strongest women that I knew and still know. So to see her in her love life deal with the kind of guys that she dealt with, it now I know that it was like self-esteem issues, and from previous relationships, but it kind of just made me cautious, like trying to figure out exactly why she wanted to do that. It was puzzling.
Could you consider it maybe if an addiction, that she couldn't get enough every time, so that when she sought out a new partner, she was hoping to get even more of a thrill and action than she did with the previous relationship?
Yes, yes, I think so.
That's very
I think
interesting. I mean, when I went to high school, and I suspect other girls have heard this as well as boys, you're warned away from the bad kids, and not to get away from it. I know, especially the girls. Well, she's a bad girl. She's already having sex, or she carries a gun. I went to a rough high school, and
okay.
you were just warned away. In fact, you never used the girls' room at all during the day if you wanted to come out alive. Because they found a couple of bodies floating in the pool one day over after the weekend. So yeah.
Oh wow. Okay. Okay.
Yes, yes. I went to a very rough high school. It was
That's
interesting. So, do you know any other bad girls that maybe you knew as acquaintances that you can give some cautionary advice to girls or boys? Because I suspect that it doesn't just happen in high school. It happens in adult life when you go to the bars to look for somebody.
Mhm. Yeah, you know what? I think that the bad girl, bad guy connotation, like I said, comes from self-esteem issues. So when you're not whole with yourself, you either look for someone else to make you whole, or you look for someone else to bring you down, to bring them down with you. So, like I tell everybody now when I do my speaking engagements, I tell them, spend time with yourself. Figure out who exactly you are before you try and go and find out who someone else is. It does no justice. It does a disservice to the both of you if you're not sure about yourself. Most people that are not sure about themselves, they go and destruct other people's lives. And it's in all ends of the spectrum when it comes to intimate relationships, platonic relationships. That's just what happens. And you got to get comfortable with you so that the world is not shunned by you.
I bet it's almost like joining a cult, like some of the religious things that are out here, that you surrender everything to them and they break down your will so that you can be more cooperative and follow their rules.
Yeah, yeah.
Because that's what it reminds me of. I've had several friends who were indoctrinated into Scientology, and a couple of years later they get out there with just the clothes on their back and their kids if they're lucky. And from what they tell me, some of these places are like bad guys who are really out to take advantage of your feelings, and they do alienate you from your family and friends.
Yeah, they do. They absolutely do. And it's like really crazy trying to put back the pieces together to yourself and trying to make your family understand that you went through some things that you can't even explain. Most family would just be like, okay, I'm done. But the people that actually care and want to take time, they will take time and allow you back in.
Do they have counselors who reprogram you the way they do with some of these people coming out from the cults, where they're really breaking you away from some of the behavior that was expected of you while you're in the cult, but is no longer necessary in the real world? Like an intervention, I guess, would probably be the best way of putting it.
Yeah. I guess they have interventions. Yeah, they have interventions. When I was going through what I was going through, I did go to therapy, and I went to a psychiatrist, and although I didn't stay long, she directed me to start writing. And when I began writing, it was an outlet. So I think that when it comes to this situation, people just need an outlet to speak about the things that are bothering them, or the things that they don't know, or the things that they want to know. I just think that when you decide, when somebody hooks their fins or their fangs inside of you, only thing that you have to do is just cover those bite marks with happiness and positive thoughts and things that make you happy, so that you don't go back there, and then you know the signs to look for if it ever comes back to you.
I think that it's very difficult, even in today's society, for girls who are in high school to really know who they are, because society is pulling them one way. The guys are pulling them another way. and their parents are pulling them another way. And I think a lot of them just want to be able to fit in and not make any waves. And I think it makes it very easier for bad boys to come along and entice them to go with them, because they probably offer them money in which they can dress themselves better, or to go somewhere they've never been, or give them a piece of jewelry.
Yes.
I mean, that's what they do with the runaways, and get them to be pimps for the, not pimps, to work for the pimp.
And that's exactly what they do. A different comparison, but it's the exact same end result.
That's very interesting. So you said this was your first book. So what's your second book going to deal with? Same subject?
Yeah, same subject, because this book is a 3-part series. So I'm just going to continue to part 2 and then part 3. There are some unanswered questions in part 1. So I'm going to answer those questions in part 2. And then the main character, her name is Kana. She's actually going to grow up in the series. So everyone's going to see her growth, because now I'm speaking about the book, but I'm already at part 3, and part 1 is she's still going through it. So I'm going to progress her so that she gets to where I am in real life, so that the character gets to where I am.
Well, it almost sounds like the bad boy would have to suppress a girl or a woman from really growing, because from what you say, bad boys don't grow. They just exist.
Yeah, they become stagnant, and they want you to be stagnant too.
Yes. So what do you think it is with the bad boy? Why does a boy turn bad? Because he has no confidence? Because he feels rejected by society? Because he wants to act out something?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Those are exactly why I think that they turn that way, because their mothers or their fathers or both of them are not really in their lives, or they're in their lives, but they're not really showing them how to love or how to even care for the opposite sex, or they didn't, their parents didn't display true love to each other, so they don't know what it looks like. They're going off of rap videos and music, music lyrics and movies and things like that. They're growing up through TV. And TV, you know how TV is.
I know how bad. So do they have a tendency then to acquire things, I guess, like a hermit crab, where they adapt certain styles that they feel makes them feel better and bigger and stronger, so that they can present this puffed up image?
Yep. But deep down, they're hurting. I have found that to be 100% true. The ones that are the tough exterior, that I don't care about women, they are definitely hurt. Definitely.
So when do you think is a good age to reach boys and sit them down and start talking about relationships with the opposite sex?
I would say, because these kids now are so advanced, and I think that maybe like 7th and 8th grade, it is a very good practice to maybe not speak about love, but speak about the interactions with the opposite sex, so that it's not foreign to them. Because they start young with it, and I think that sophomore year of high school or freshman year of high school is already too late. They've already done the damage.
They're already practicing. I've seen kids as young as junior high having oral sex, sexual relationships with other girls or with other boys, and vice versa. And I know when my son was in high school, he asked me, well, Mom, I don't understand. And I said, what's the problem? And he says, well, my friends tell each other, their opposite partner, if it's a boy, it's a girl, that they love each other. And then the next week there was somebody else, and they repeat the same thing. What gives? And I said, Ben, it's not how many notches you put in your belt. I said, it's the commitment to one person and stand by them no matter what. Let me give you an example. If you go out and kill somebody, you'll be put in prison, but I'll still love you. I'm not going to abandon you. But if you're in a casual relationship, the other person, your partner, is giving you permission to leave.
Right.
And I said, that's the difference. He was shocked because that's not what they say in the streets.
Exactly.
And a lot of kids, even if they come from good homes, still land up on the streets because kids in high school form relationships, with people that you would have tied them up into the backyard if they were 6, 7, or 8, because you wouldn't approve of such people. But kids like to pick out controversial kids to be friends with. They're trying to test their limits, and they're testing their parents' limits to see whether or not the parent's going to come in and say, I absolutely forbid you to go and see him, which, as you said, gives him direct permission to go and see him.
Absolutely. It absolutely does.
And so I tell parents to use reverse psychology. So it works on my son, and he's still in his mid-40s. But you have to be careful with what you say and what you do, because you are responsible then for the behavior that is thus exhibited.
And then you know what? You know your children. You know how to approach them and how not to. You use reverse psychology in your son because you know him.
Yes.
And you know what's going to make him react and what's not going to make him react.
Absolutely.
And that's what I think that more parents need to do, spend time with their children so they know who they are, so that they know how to redirect them if they have to.
Well, I remember when my son came home during Thanksgiving after his first semester at college, and he went to college in New York City. So New York City is kind of the equivalent of Chicago, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
So he comes and he says, I know where all the drugs are sold off campus. I said, that's nice. You're going to get a job now and support your habit? Mom never touched the stuff. But I think he wanted to let me know that if he really wanted to, he could probably go and get it. But it wasn't something he was interested in or willing to sacrifice his career for, because he was an art major, for drugs. And he had enough trouble coughing up enough cash to go see the concerts with his friends, and if he had to choose between the concerts and the drugs, well, the concerts won every single time. But I did a good job of bringing him up as well. But he did the same thing when he went to high school. He came home and said, I know where they sell all the drugs and alcohol in the high school, and the football team is all hooked. That's nice. He says, aren't you going to get upset? I said, no. Really? I said, yeah.
Yeah.
And he said, "Oh, well." I mean, it was like, what? You're listening to me, but you're ignoring what I'm saying. Now, aren't you a friend? And I trusted him. I knew he wasn't going to get involved with that stuff. Why? Because he put too many of his friends to bed drunk, and they've gotten sick all over him, the car, and their bedroom. And he saw too many spaced out cadets at the airport when he was a kid, because I used to take him to the airport to look at all the brainless kids out there because they burned their brains out with acid. And that stuff stayed with him. So there is a way, parents, to work with your children so they won't date a bad boy or a bad girl. But the word here is work.
Yes. And it's also a way that your kid won't be a bad boy or a bad girl. And it's the same thing. Just know your kid.
Absolutely. And trust them. They're going to make mistakes. No doubt about it. You can teach them your mistakes. They won't make your mistakes, but they'll make some of their own. And if they do get involved with a bad boy or a bad girl, make sure you stand by them.
Amen. Exactly.
Because it just, it's not your choice, it's their choice. And the thing is some kids sometimes have to hurt themselves before they smell the coffee, as they say. Sometimes they're going to do a terrible thing and learn from it. You cannot teach them how to make good or bad choices. That is up to them. You can't live your life through them. Although a lot of parents try. So, Maui, please tell everybody where they can find you in the World Wide Web, where your website is, where your book is, how they can get a hold of either one, book or you, and any upcoming engagements.
Okay, so my website is www.somewomenpreferhell.com, and you can purchase the book on my website, directly from my website, or Amazon. We have it on eBay, Barnes & Noble. It's on Apple. Anywhere you can find the book, my book is there. My Instagram is at justmodi, JUSTMODI, with 2 underscores. And actually, tomorrow I will be in Rhode Island speaking at Rhode Island College.
Great.
That is my next event. Yeah.
Congratulations. And before we go away, because this wraps up the program for this evening, Charles de Saint-Yvemond, in a letter in 1674, says, "A short absence quickens love, a long absence kills it." Thank you all very much for listening to Cool Your Heels with Lillian on AMFM247.com every Tuesday evening from 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern. You can also hear it on the smartphone. And you can also hear it at https://passionateworldradionetwork.com under Cool Your Heels. And on the page for Cool Your Heels, it will have a box saying list where my program can be heard in other places. Well, click on it so you can listen to it. You can also go over to the player page and click on that because it will be on the radio station. My radio station, Passionate World Radio Network. You can also hear it on iTunes.com/Cool Your Heels. You can hear it on YouTube because it converts to video, so that's youtube.com/PWR Network LLC. On Facebook.com/PWRN Network LLC and Passionate World Radio. Twitter.com @PWRN, and a host of directories. Thank you all very much for listening, and remember, please keep listening. Thank you.